Nevin Shapiro served 10 years in prison for allegedly running a $930 million Ponzi scheme, made famous for providing University of Miami players with cash, cars, jewelry, watches, yacht trips, fueling a lavish lifestyle culture during the program's peak years. Now, Nevin is out of prison and ready to share his truth.
Mr. Nevin Shapiro, thank you for having me in your home.
My pleasure. I'm glad to give you an opportunity to break out a great discussion.
I appreciate it. I think it seems like we've talked all day today about kind of the misconception of what was portrayed versus the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
Like, if we're going to tell this story today, where do you think we should start?
Well, I think for one, there's this absolute fog that I was a fraud, and I just woke up one day and $930 million I decided to steal. I think that's a good point. We could really start into how I got into business, exactly what my journey was to get me to a point where I was able to take in those kind of funds, because it's not an average number.
No doubt.
When the media builds a narrative, and of course I had to plead guilty, and I really didn't have a choice, and that's going to come out later on. There was just huge collateral damage that was going to come in if I didn't plead. Yeah. And, everyone, it's always easy to say, oh, that guy's this, he's guilty, this, that. But if you really don't know what the story is, you can't comment. Now, I get it why a lot of people feel the way they feel. But I'm fairly certain, I can't say with 100% because it's in God's hands, my conviction is going to inevitably be overturned. And there's going to be a lot of answers for others to have to come up with.
Mm-hmm.
So, between what I have in process, in motion, and everything else, which we can get into as we speak, I guess we should start with what's my background?
Yeah.
Where'd I come from? So I was born in Brooklyn, New York. My family moved. I'm 55 years old now. So I was born in 1969. We moved to Florida. We moved to Miami in 1975. I was 6 years old. I still to this day have a lot of family in New York, so I still have somewhat of an accent to a degree because my parents never really left Brooklyn. Physically they did, mentally they didn't. And I grew up middle class around a lot of very wealthy, for the most part, Jewish kids. I'm Jewish. As a matter of fact, before I moved to Florida, I was going to yeshiva. So I was actually being raised very, very, not orthodox, but very close to orthodox.
Very different from the Miami life that you ended up with.
Yeah. I think that had a lot to do with how I turned out, per se. But anyway, so I went to Miami Beach Senior High School. I graduated in 1986, and then I went to the University of South Florida for college. I didn't graduate. I was probably about 12 credits short, maybe 15 credits short. I don't remember, but I just had enough. And really, I was majoring in criminal justice, but the irony of that is I knew I was never going to use my degree. I was always going to be built for business, whatever it was going to be. And when I first got out, I had a modest job working. Well, for the first year, I didn't do anything, but then I had to finally get a job. Went to work for a liquor distributor, and then I get an opportunity to get into the grocery diversion business, which is my stepsisters were in that business and making six figures plus. And this is in the very early 90s, 93 specifically. And I learned the business inside out and inevitably went off on my own in 95. So from 93 to 95, I got my training ground. And then I really learned the business. And it's a niche business. Not a lot of people are familiar with it.
So it's like a wholesale grocery?
Yeah, you're dealing with all the major manufacturers: Kraft, General Mills, Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Del Monte. You know,
And you're kind of just a middleman between them.
you're the
and
middleman.
groceries.
Yeah.
Grocery
And
stores.
yeah, so really the real like definition is like, it's really the arbitrage of business. You take advantage of discounts in one section of the country and where they don't have them in maybe on the West Coast, or, you know, vice versa. And it's a niche business, and I was making a lot of money. I mean, I was 25 years old making $250,000 a year in the mid 90s. So whatever that inflation number is today, that's what it was. So there's this, you know, misperception, misconception that like I was a fraud and I had no business. That's absolutely not the truth, because if I was, there's no way that the lenders, not investors, they were lenders. And I can explain that as we move along, but there's no way that they would have put in the kind of money with me if I was full of shit. Like, I had real numbers, I had real business, and the real problems started for me, which we'll get into, but the real problem started for me late 2000, early 2008. And there's specific reasons for all that stuff. So people just think like there was no, and the government acknowledges that. I was loaded. Like, I was loaded financially, very wealthy at a young age. And so when they're like, well, he stole money and he used it to do this and do that, that's not true. That's not true. And that's not me not showing contrition, which we'll also get into. But the narrative is not put out accurately in any way, shape, or form. Not anywhere close. It's going to be, because now I'm going to control the narrative, but with receipts and documents and other stuff. But anyway, so I got into the grocery business in 1993 and really learned it from the inside out. And I was moving 48-foot containers, you know, average cost of a container, depending what the item, $35,000, $40,000, $50,000. Some containers were $200,000, depending on what the item was. And I was like a stockbroker, but with groceries. And it was all 100% legitimate and nothing funky about it.
Like, what changed? What was the shift that happened?
Well, the shift was I was financing somebody who robbed me and my lenders for.
So why were you financing them? What was the story there?
They had been a source of merchandise for me. I had known this individual since 1993. And there's no hearsay speculation. This is all documented. I mean, this is all going to come out. So there's certain things I can't really discuss because of certain exclusivity situations, which I've explained to you. But this is going to be unearthed. And my lenders got robbed to the tune of $25 to $40 million. But I'm responsible for that number. That's on my back.
So what really happened was, and this was the first kind of domino, right? So it was, you were the middleman in that scenario as well with the lending.
Yeah. And so I went through, I'll term them a dream team of attorneys, because they were significant attorneys, very high price and whatnot. But really, they turned into be a nightmare of attorneys for me because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
Yeah. And why didn't they do what they were supposed to do?
Well, they'd have to answer that. I can't speak on their behalf, but they're going to get a fair opportunity to answer those questions shortly.
Can I speculate based on kind of the some of the things that I saw, in the sense of just they it was in their best in their best personal interest.
Well, it was in their financial interest to have me removed, which, you know, my case is so, I don't want to say the word tricky. It's so complex that it's not a one interview session. It's a semester in college, followed up by a second semester. It's that complex.
It has some depth to it there.
Yeah.
So how did we go from the first deal the where you were lending, where your the person got robbed,
Yeah, well,
to the $930 million.
well, that's a
supposedly.
number that the feds came up with that is based on money through the register,
Yep.
right? It's not like one day I woke up and I said, "Send me $930 million." Like, that's not what happened. I had a securities attorney. Like, there's so many mitigating factors. Which, if I go to trial today, I win. I win. Based on everything that I've learned that was done to me while I was locked up, and I couldn't fight. You're locked up. And I'm watching the situation right now with Puffy, and I only mention that because he can't fight from where he is.
And White.
He's got zero chance to fight from where he's sitting. I know, because I've been in that exact tier that he's sitting in. You cannot fight from there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, getting a shower is like miraculous. So when you're up against the government, you're up against an evil opposition that is virtually impossible to beat, especially when you're on their terms and rules. So I can't really get very deep into the hows and the whys and this and that, because it's just going to take too long, and it's not going to be fair to your viewers.
But in terms of, so really what happened, right, was was you were just lending money, and it grew to a substantial magnitude.
Well,
and
I was
the
doing
financial crisis kind of happened.
Well, I was doing business. I had switched over my core business from the grocery diversion to real estate. Now I was raising a lot of funds for massive projects, and the feds have all my information. They know what it is. Like, if my situation doesn't end up in a criminal capacity, I'm worth a few $1 billion today, conservatively, and we're not even having this conversation. But as fate would have it, and the economy, it was a perfect storm against me at the wrong time. Bernie Madoff happened. You're probably too young to remember what was going on at this particular time, but like, Bernie Madoff happened. Barack Obama had just become president. He had to bail the banks out because the banks were going under. We were in like a bad depression. And when I was locked up, I met a number of guys that were there as a result of that same nexus.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to our economy? It sunk. It was about to sink in the middle of the ocean. Obama bailed out the banks. You had Lehman Brothers, and there's a number of other scenarios. Now, that's not me not accepting whatever contrition I need to, because had I just been honest with my lenders, I don't even get to this position. It ends. It stays civil. It doesn't even get civil. It just, if I'm honest with them, the real perpetrator is apprehended, and we just reorganize.
Mm-hmm.
And with what real estate did, and specifically in South Florida, in those following years, I never see the inside of a prison cell.
And so, like, with that, what did you do wrong?
Well, I wasn't honest with my lenders, for one. And had I been honest with them and really, it's easier to say now. When you reach a point of financial success in general, our current president-elect could probably speak on it as well. You develop an ego that's insatiable. It's almost impossible to not allow it to creep up on you. And I had been so programmed on coming out of any situation that I was pressed against that I just assumed I would come out of this as well. There was no intent to take $1. As a matter of fact, the restitution that I was charged with, I've already recovered. Now no one's acknowledged that. No one says it.
That's
82,657,000.
So how did that?
Well, it's called clawback money, right? It's called clawback money. So you work with the trustee. They recovered 40 million, but the real number was never 82 to begin with. There were certain loans that I was given that I secured with property and this and that. So I should have never been charged with that loss because I secured them. So upon my being done with custody, which is going to be 18 months, unless something happens when the Biden administration goes out, which there's speculation there will be, I'm going to begin all my legal process with restitution hearings, and we're going to go through, like, I didn't steal this money, and I'm going to be able to prove it.
Yep.
And I don't care who believes me, who does. I know there's about 10 to 15 people very close to my circle who are well aware of what's taken place. And if I mention one or two names, for example, the lender, the guy that I loaned the money to who robbed my lenders, if I mention his name, nobody out there would know who this guy is. So that's how I know they don't even know about my case. Because this guy is
big part of your case.
Well, he's the core of my case. He went to the feds to get himself out of criminal trouble.
And so your private investigator said your money came too fast, too early, and too easy. Too fast, too early, too easy.
Yeah.
So what did that do to you? You mentioned like the ego. And
he's right. I mean, if you follow sports, you look at these kids, they come out, I mean, even now with the NIL. So like, that's a good example. Like, just take a kid like Shador Sanders. Now, luckily he's got his dad who's on top of him, but like, how do you pay an 18-year-old kid $7 million or $5 million? Yeah. Like, all right, you're 20, whatever. What are you doing with $5 million if I give it to you right now?
I don't even know.
You understand?
Yeah.
So like, that's the question. You know what I mean? So like, imagine you're making ridiculous money, but you're doing it so easy. You don't think it'll ever end. So that's why you see a lot of these athletes go broke. It's just a good analogy. What do you do when you have so much so fast?
It seems like there's a really weird thing that happens when your money matures much faster than you do.
Good one. Accurate. Yeah. Very accurate. And what happened to me, I mean, I can't, he was right, my private investigator, his name's Pat Franklin. He's right. He witnessed it firsthand. It came very easy and it came very fast. I mean, I worked hard. Yeah. Like I had 15, 16-hour days. Like, don't get it twisted. I worked my ass. Like, I put myself in that position. But inevitably what happens is if you have that type of personality, which I do, the power becomes the drug. It's not even the money. It's the power. Now you're making moves. You're calling shots. You're making decisions for other people in high positions. So the power is really what got to me. He's right about the money. I didn't,
but it was the power that really lit the fire under the ego and set things going.
Yeah. And, I look back now and, I still have some growing to do. Not physically, emotionally. But I see things with a lot greater clarity now than I did certainly 20 years ago.
The thrill of it, like, you can watch the 30 for 30 on the U Part 2 or some of the articles that you read, and this lifestyle that, you were living. It was it's like some Wolf of Wall Street shit. And like, did you feel like the thrill was worth it? Was it empty? Like, what was it like during that time?
So that's a great question. I told guys in prison, they were always crazy to talk to me about the money. And I really try to make a lot of these guys understand that, I was rich financially and I was really empty spiritually. And, by the time I was getting out or got out, I was drained of all my assets, but I was rich in ways that I never was before.
Do you think you were happier then?
I'm happier now. I'm happier now because I know what's important. I see things with great clarity. Your family's everything. I'm an only child. I've watched my parents both age. My dad's going to be 80 in March. My mom's 77 now. She just turned 77. They both had a stroke. I'm an only child. So due to me being in there, I take great responsibility for that. Yeah. And, you know, I just see things very, very differently. I just do. Now, I still got that edge to me. If you see me on social media or you this and that, like, I just don't take shit. I never will.
Uh-huh.
I'm just not, it's not my DNA. I'm just, like, I'm the furthest thing from a pussy. And I don't know, you could give your own assessment of me. You've spoken to me a few times and met me. So you could have your own opinion. But, like, I'm really a good guy. I'm a nice guy. I take my shirt off my back for anybody. My victims in my case weren't my victims. The government created those 62 victims.
So how did that happen?
Well, they threw me into involuntary bankruptcy.
So they froze all your accounts
on purpose.
So
I had no victims. I had no outstanding liabilities. And the way it went about, and it's all going to come out, and I can't get into the specific details, but that's going to come out. And I know where it's going to head.
Yep.
I'm going to get exonerated from this. I'm going to get exonerated.
And not just because
an
it was a
overturned
corrupt
conviction. It's going to be an overturned
Why
conviction.
do you feel like it happened? Like, why did the FBI, why did this whole situation even transpire?
I could give you a very, very long answer. It's going to bore your audience because they're not going to be able to just jump in and understand who's that, how'd that happen. But it was done very, very tactfully. And the ones that got hurt were the lenders, which I got charged with 62 victims. And I never stopped fighting to get their money back because I didn't steal it.
Yeah.
And people would say, "Oh, this guy's full of shit." And this, I've read everything and heard everything about me. Like, I'm crocodile skin at this point. It doesn't faze me because I know who I am. And adversity doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you are. Right?
Yep.
So I've always been the same dude. Unfortunately, I had to find out what it was like to be public enemy number one and hated. And certainly the University of Miami situation didn't help my cause. But that also wasn't my fault that blew up the way it did. And that's for another time and another place, because that's a very small part of my life. And people get it mistaken that I went away for the University of Miami situation when I went away for what is considered on paper the fourth largest individual crime, financial crime in the U.S.'s history.
That's so crazy.
And I'm not bragging about it like I won a Nobel Peace Prize. It's not a list I prefer to be on.
Of course. And that number is much different as well than the actual number that like the number you're charged with.
Like I would love to go to trial today in a speedy
because you
trial.
feel like you have a lot of evidence on your
No,
side.
I don't feel it. I know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a difference. A feeling's a feeling. Knowing something's different. Like, I know what I know. And the people that are in my circle, they know what I know.
Yeah. And like when you hear a story like this, and I think since COVID, people they're much more open-minded to conspiracies, or conspiracies is the wrong word, but they're more aware of the games that go on behind the scenes.
Listen, you're standing in front of me. I'm 5'5.5", so I'm not a tall guy, right? Okay, so that seems to be a narrative for people. He's a very small man. I'm 5'5.5". Muggsy Bogues was 5'3", played in the NBA. If the government told you I was 6'9", you'd believe him probably, right? Because it's the government says it, or the mainstream media. You're going to believe them. Why wouldn't you? They don't lie.
Probably since COVID, some people question the narrative a little bit more, but yeah.
Come on. Our president-elect has 34 felonies. He's technically got 33 more than me. I would vote for him. I'm happy as hell he's in. You understand? Because I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And so does he.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And don't make me get up and do my Trump dance. But like, but you know, yeah, you know what I mean? So like, you can't fight everyone.
Yeah.
You can't just make people that aren't rational.
Mm-hmm.
And what credibility do I have? I keep hearing he's a liar. What have I lied about? Ever. You know where I lied? I was dishonest with my lenders. Had I been honest with them, we're not even having this conversation.
Yeah, because if you're honest with them, the accounts never get frozen.
Well, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
They apprehend the real perpetrator.
Uh-huh.
And I work out my deal with my one biggest lender or 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
We reorganize and we get everyone else out of the way, and we just reorganize.
Which is a common theme that happens in real estate. Like, fucking Trump's been like all these guys.
Of
go
course.
through it.
Of course. And that's what, and that's where my ego
got the better of you.
Got the better of me and superseded what would have been a prudent decision.
Mm-hmm. And that edge, like, I'm always curious about people's edges because it's like, it's the thing that makes you and the thing that breaks you in some ways, you know? It's the thing that allows you to get into your position, but it's also the thing for a lot of times that's your downfall.
Live by the sword, die by the sword.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like what's your relationship like with your like? Did you feel now? Do you feel like you should? I mean, obviously,
it's Monday morning quarterback. I can't take it back.
Yeah.
You know, when you and you know, and hopefully we're going to talk about some of the things that I'm doing now in a very positive light, because my experience, my story is a real tragedy. I had everything, and I really could have just lived a very comfortable life just on interest. If I decided I didn't even want to work again. And it's tragic in the sense that it didn't have to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't have to happen. And the way it went about it, but you know, God works in his ways, and I'm not like Mr. Spiritual mumbo jumbo and this and that, but like me going away, I grew up. I wish I didn't have to go away, but I grew up and I'm a different person. I'm a much better person, and I see things like God knew that I had to be rescued.
Mm-hmm.
Like he gave me a timeout. Did I need 10 years? I probably could have been okay with 5, but it, you know, it really changed me and for the better.
Yeah.
I could tell you this, you know, and I still take a lot of grief from some of the people that I speak to before where they're like, you're still that No, I'm not that person. I'm not. I evolved in a lot of ways. Is that attitude there? Is that edge? Like I said, it's never going away, ever. I'll be in a box by the time that's over. But the way I view life and society, we're in just such a nasty world. I just put out a post. Everyone's a hater. Everyone's miserable with the next guy. Man, just like, can't we get along? I mean, and I don't know if it's the political strife or what's caused this, but like, we're just in a nasty existence, you know? And I witnessed it inside too. Everything's like divided with race. It's just, listen, man, we live in America. It should be one. That's really how it should be, you know? But I give a lot. I've done, since I'm home, I've given about 15 lectures, give or take, maybe 13, 14, to universities. And I know it sounds funny, but I lecture on compliance and ethics, business ethics, because who's violated them Worse.
better than anyone else.
I mean, if you're gonna, you know what I'm saying. So
what
like,
do those speeches look like? What do those conversations look like?
they're amazing. And so I've spoken to Fordham University a number of times in the Bronx, all on Zoom. Fairfield University, Barry Law School out of Orlando. And there's some other ones that are lined up or planned for the future, some significant universities, law schools as well. And I love it.
Yeah. What do you tell them? Like, what's the message?
I advise them on what not to do. Like, if you reach that fork in the road and you're not sure,
be honest.
Don't take it. Don't take that turn. Right?
Because what was that turn for you? That was
for
not going
me.
back
It
to
was really
lenders?
not just being upfront with my lenders. And had I been upfront with my lenders, I had made them so much money over the course of 8-9 years, almost a decade, that I earned that mulligan, where I would have been able to. Okay, look, it's not the end of the world. We're going to be able to get out of this. Let me reorganize. Give me 60 days. 90 days.
It's like that saying in real estate, when you if you have $1 million loan and you can't pay it, you have the problem. If you have $1 billion loan, the bank has a problem, or we have a problem.
Trump did it with Atlantic City, and that was the art of the deal. And I that's the position I was in. That's really the position I was in, and. But anyway, so, I lecture these universities. I get a lot of fulfillment out of it. The gentleman who's a professor who asked me to speak, it's become a quarterly thing. So and I speak for free for him because I'm happy to do it. And I really just feel, I really get a lot of fulfillment. And I watched the students, I was one of them myself. And, there wasn't Zoom back in the day. So like I'm watching their faces and they're like, and for me, it's a good thrill, but it's a very cautionary tale of what could happen. And, you're 21, 22, whether it's grad school, whatever it is, you don't know how you're going to feel when you're 32 and that situation hits you. Like, I got to make a move. I'm upside down. I'm over leveraged. But it happens. That's life. That's business. And it's very fulfilling to me.
What type of questions do they ask?
They ask everything. When was the moment you knew you were in trouble? What would you have done differently? What was your mindset like with all that money? Probably the same questions you would ask me right now, 100 of them. You know what I mean? And I would sit and the one thing about when I give these lectures, we have a Q&A. I give my spiel about my background and everything else. But the best part of the lecture for me are the Q&A sessions, because I'm honest to a core. Like, it's raw. You may not like what you're hearing, like these Miami fans, but it is what it is. You're getting the real answers, and it's like going to a doctor, and you don't want to hear him tell you that you have cancer, but he's got to tell you what it is. So I tell these students what it is, and I just know the feedback I get from the professor the following week, because he doesn't see them again till that following week. I love the feedback. Yeah,
people are just like, what the fuck?
They can't even believe he had me in their room.
Yeah,
like, how did you get this guy to even like? And for me, it's just given me a spark where I really just want to. Everything I do from this point out is going to be speaking engagements and media related. I love it, because I just think the journey has been so incredible from the peak to the valley, and then hopefully back to the peak. And it's an unprecedented story. The Wolf of Wall Street's a great story. He went away for a year. I went away for a decade, and really got 20 years. and I'm only home because of COVID. And so, you know, one question that always comes up for people such as yourself who reach out to try to speak with me or whatnot. Why would you speak to that guy? Why wouldn't you? Who's had $5 billion in their account? Who's been to prison for 10 years? Who's helped build the greatest football team in the history of college sports? Why wouldn't you want to talk to me? You got a better story? I mean, all right, share it with me. Like, people would much rather talk about you because if they talked about themselves, nobody would listen. Right? And it's not me being arrogant. It's just me being honest. I'm no angel. I know I went away. I'm a convicted felon today. I just say I won't be, inevitably. So when someone says, are you a convicted felon? I know I'm going to be able to say no. Today I have to answer yes. But that's not how it's going to be. And it's not going to be from a pardon. Like, I'm not going to pay my way out of this. I'm going to get overturned because they got it wrong.
When you think about the peak and the valley, or the darkest part, what, like, time period wise, what was going on for both of those? We'll start with the peak.
Well, the peak is endless, right? How many climaxes can you have in a peak? Every day was a peak.
What time period was that? How long did that last? Like,
well, it lasted for at least, I mean, I've been wealthy since I'm an adult. So 25 years old. So
when did you make your first, like, million?
29 years old,
29.
1998. I made my first million. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was Memorial Week, right before Memorial Weekend. I went to Key West with my girlfriend, Al Murata.
And at what point was it? Because that's a pretty fast from $1 million to 100 plus.
Big ascension.
Yeah. What was that?
Well, that ascension took place in between 2002 and 2005. I blasted off like Elroy Jetson, somewhere out of space.
And how old are you at that point?
33, 34.
Yeah, so
that picture, like, of Kellen Winslow and myself with the champagne bottle, the one they used on the 30 for 30, I was at max. I was at max altitude right there.
How much were you spending a night? Like, when you just fucking didn't even matter, didn't even care?
No. I had American Express Black Card. It just there was no limit.
Yeah. And so that lasted like 3-4 years.
No, that lasted. I rocked out. I was rocking out before I hit the altitude. So, like, really from 98, I was really always going, to be honest with you. Mid 90s, 95, 96. But then 98, I went to a different, there's levels.
Yep.
So, like, 98, I was at a level.
And that was floor seats at the Heat, hanging out with Shaq.
No, that was 2000. That was 2005.
So that was further down the road.
Yeah. Then I was in a whole different stratosphere. Like, I was 36,000 feet up. And
do you look back, like, what emotions come up when you think about that time?
Thank God it's over.
Yeah.
It was too much. It was a lot of pressure, man. I was carrying a lot. I was living 20 lives. I was focusing on shit I shouldn't have. And the truth of the matter is, I got to take my responsibility for my own downfall, because I got corrupted morally. You know,
it was a morally fucking dark time.
Yeah. You know, I look back now and I have just tremendous regret about who got my time and energy and where it should have been. And that's why I say I'm a different guy now. I'm working right now with a media company called Beyond the Narrative. We do a podcast every week, college football. The boss of that operation, his name is Andy Hernandez. Such a great guy. I did an interview with him a few months ago. That's really how the relationship started. Such a great guy, and his associates are amazing dudes, and I really love doing it. Like, there's nothing else I want to do. Like, this is going to be my platform and my world.
I love it.
And I'm a natural at it. speaking is nothing to me. There's no fear. I'm not shy. I'm judgment proof.
You've been calloused on that one.
I'm statement proof. Things don't bother me. But, I work with these guys and they got a great setup. And I really linked up with some really good guys.
Great.
And it's an amazing show, man. Like, my college football knowledge is on par with anybody in America. Anybody. Reese Davis, Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Fowler, you name it. I'll go toe-to-toe with anybody and hold my own. I'm not going to say I'm the best commentator of all time, but I'm as knowledgeable as anybody in America when it comes to college football.
And that time period when you were like 29, right before that ascent up, that if you were to like now be able to talk to that kid.
I love that question. Someone asked me that, not in an interview. Someone asked me that like in just a phone conversation. And I said, man, that's a great question. And so I'll tell you, that's a great question. What would you say to a 30-year-old you? Man, slow the fuck down. Where are you going? You're going to get there. Like, where are you going? Man, I was moving so fast. Like, I would do deals. I would do business deals. And let's say I made a $100,000 profit. Or one of my real estate ventures, I'd flip an apartment because the market was just going through the roof in the early mid 2000s before the recession. And so I had apartments sold before I'd even purchased them. So they were flips to flips, and I'm making $300,000 in like as long as it takes to sign. But it was anticlimactic to me because I was already thinking about the next deal. And that's what I mean, slow down. What would you tell the youngers? Man, appreciate the ride. Everybody has the ability to make money. What really makes it great is the journey. That's what really makes it great. And I just had this conversation in the last week or two with the guys I work with at Beyond the Narrative. And I said, you know what? Listen, when you have money, it's great. But the process is so enriching and fulfilling to start something from an acorn and watch it grow. And then you're like, man, that was so much fun. Remember we were at this spot? Remember we were this? We were... And that's what I would do differently. I would just slow down and really just smell the roses, man. Like, appreciate the little things. I used to live like, I need a Bentley, I need this, I need a Benz, I need that, What do you get next? What do you get next? What do you get next? Doesn't mean shit. It really doesn't mean shit. And I live in Boca, right? So I see the bougiest of the bougie, right? It's a different level than Miami. Miami's fraudulent and phony, and everyone's faking the funk. There's no faking here. Like, these people are just loaded, right? So I'm like looking out at this restaurant, and there's like 4 Bugattis at the valet stand. The Bentleys are like the poor man on the totem pole. Like, they got to park in the dirt. And it's funny for me. But anyway, like, that stuff used to be impressive to me. But I just know for these people, it's like, who's got the biggest dick in the yard? Like, that's what's really going through their mind. And I'm so far from that. And so when I listen to guys, oh, he's this, he's that, he's that. Man, there's not one person out there that wouldn't love to have lived my life, even with the prison time. That's how over the top it was.
What was that prison time like?
You know,
because you didn't serve. It wasn't a white collar prison that you went to. You went away.
That's another misnomer. Listen, you're from Jersey. How would you feel about hanging out in Newark for 17 months?
No comment. Yeah. Wouldn't be my favorite.
And inside, you got it. Like,
oh yeah.
I mean,
I'll believe it,
dude.
Yeah.
Strap up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, and your neighbors are Jersey City, Camden, and Patterson. You know what I'm saying? So, like,
no fun.
You just develop it ain't for everybody. I could tell you that. I don't know one of my friends that could have done one day where I was. But I'm a different breed mentally. Anyway, I'm not.
Toughness, grit, that type of thing.
Just grit, man. I'm from Brooklyn. Like, I don't see color. I don't give a fuck if you're black, you're white, you're Hispanic. It doesn't matter. It is what it is, man. If you're shit, you're shit. You know what I mean? And so I don't see that, and I never gave off that vibe, and I certainly didn't carry no bougie ass attitude with me when I went in. And I think that's what a lot of guys. Now, I had my haters, of course, because it was more jealousy, right? And it is what it is. I get it. But I didn't carry myself like I was better then, because trust me, you get $360 a month to spend on commissary. What makes your $360 any more special than the guy next to you? Nothing. You're wearing the same stupid ass fucking clothes every day. You look like a dick. You feel like a dick. You feel worthless. And it's a horrible experience. And it's not one that I would recommend for anybody who doesn't like living uncomfortably.
Yeah. What'd you do during your time?
No, I mean, I played ball hours and hours a day.
Just playing basketball?
Until I really just couldn't. They put me in the shoe for 6 months, and it like broke my back on a steel rack for 6 months. So I came out. Like when I went to prison.
So what's a shoe like?
It's solitary housing unit, special housing unit. So you're just locked in a cell for 24 hours a day. You get an hour rec at like 6 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning. And if you don't go, nothing on the weekends, by the way. It's terrible. I mean, you get in touch with yourself.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's almost like
it's torture. So you get in touch with yourself.
Does it, though, become like, by the end of it, or you just like,
you know what's funny?
Know yourself?
You know what's funny? When I got done after 6 months, it was like 5 months. I did 5 months and a week, I think. I don't remember the exact time. It was just under 6 months. But when I went in, I was kicking the door. Fuck this, fuck that. Screaming just because I was nuts, losing my mind. And by the end of it, they're like, Shapiro, you're going back to the yard. I'm like, oh fuck, I don't want to go back to the yard, man. Can I just stay here another week or two? Like, I was just so settled into my routine. I was doing like 2,000 push-ups a day.
Was it like almost meditative at that point? Like it was like
I read more books than I did when I was in college. Like I really studied because I was so fucking bored. But you know, guys who have been where I've been, they know what I'm talking about. And you just develop a pattern, a routine. And you're just self-disciplined. And it's really fucked up.
Yeah, it's like the life of a monk in like more extreme.
Oh my God, listen. But let me tell you something. When I got done with that, I crossed over.
That was the tipping point.
For me, mentally. I reached the point of you want to pause it till this thing leaves?
So you were talking about the shoe and that experience with how almost the meditative aspect of it.
Yeah, I really crossed over, man, to the other side with acceptance. And I read a lot of books, and that's when I reconnected with my spirituality with regards to my Judaism. Mm-hmm. I started doing tefillin, which is a daily prayer. You don't do it on Saturday, on the Shabbos, on the Sabbath. I self-taught myself, and it reconnected me. Mm-hmm. And, when you're in a situation like that, not everybody's spiritual, and I really haven't always been very spiritual, but, you've got to look for a higher power, because it's really just you and your thoughts. And it's a really difficult process when you're inside that mentally. And I had some real challenging moments there.
So that was the journey to acceptance, and
it was the journey to realize that you don't have control of yourself or your freedom or shit, and someone else does. Mm-hmm. And I had a real arrogant side to me.
What's that?
Because to this day, I feel like I didn't deserve what I got. but I was very hostile towards the system at that point in time. And as a result of being hostile and thinking I was
Getting screwed.
a rock star, I was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Then there was documentaries, American Greed. You know, they felt like I wasn't understanding I'm a number.
Man.
I don't want to say they were right, but let's just say that situation really was a big growth.
Beat the ego.
They're going to get that out of you. You don't control shit. And they got something for you. If you think you're going to overcome them or supersede their powers and authority. That's not happened. That was a real come to God moment for me. And it got me right.
Yeah. So what was your time like before that moment versus after that moment? Was it almost a different experience in a way?
Honestly, I was in shock for the first couple of years. I needed something to get me out of the shock. That was it. It wasn't like the first fight I had inside, or it wasn't the first time of conflict.
Yeah.
It was that.
I'm sure there's some crazy moments in prison.
Yeah, there were. I really, until I'm out of custody, I really don't want to elaborate
Yeah, of course.
a whole lot on that. I'm respectful of,
Process.
of where I am right now, which is still in custody. So I don't think it's appropriate for me to get into that. However, when I'm done, it'll be tell all, and it's going to be what it is. And it'll be time stamped and documented from others as well. But for right now, I have to defer from those specifics.
What was your relation like with all this stuff going on? What was your relationship like with your family? Were they like, what the fuck? Like,
well, I'm an only child. My parents were devastated.
yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, I spoke to them every day. And by the way, when I went to the shoot, they took the phone away from me for a year.
Wow.
So I couldn't even talk to my parents for a year. For a year. And it's cruel and unusual punishment, honestly. But no one could believe it. My friend, none of my friends could believe it, nor could I. I was in shock. And then when I got out, I was in shock for like 2 years that I was out.
What was that like?
It was shock. Like it took me 2 years.
Did you enjoy it, or was it just weird?
I didn't even know I was here. Like surreal, like out of body, floating, like really just weird. I can't explain it. It took me 2 to 3 years to really. It took me at least 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, here, I'll give you an example. So I had a lot of cars before I went away, right? Typically, all of them flew. Right. Like the median was my lane. The left median. And so I was never driving slower than 90 ever.
Sweet.
So when I first got my license, when I came out, I didn't drive for like 8 or 9 months because I was scared to drive. Now keep in mind, I had 11 cars when I went in. Now I'm driving in the right lane like my grandmother. And I'm like, man, these cars are moving so fast. It was really very surreal. And I'm over it now. Yeah. I'm good. But listen, reintegration in society is real. From a human level. Forget.
I mean, you didn't have a conversation with someone for 6 months when you were in the shoot. Like, I can't even imagine what that's like.
Well, luckily for me, there weren't. One of the wardens said to me, Shapiro, like, who are you talking to, or this and that? And I said, I'm talking to myself, because if I want an intellectual conversation, I have to talk to myself. That's how stupid a lot of the people I was around. So, like, yeah, like getting a hug. Man, I didn't get a hug for a decade.
So crazy.
You know,
That
I mean, I'm a different guy today.
yeah.
I'm just a different guy. And I'm very much like a hermit.
Sure.
That's it.
Not because I'm afraid of anything. I just really appreciate silence now. I didn't even have a TV. My friend came to me because I didn't want one. It wasn't football season though. But if it was football season, I definitely would have.
It was its own thing.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So my friend comes over, he's like, bro, you just moved in here. You don't even have a TV. I go, yeah, I don't want one. He goes, I need to watch TV when I come see you. I said, well, then you could buy a TV and put it up. But I'm like, man, I love the silence. Because you got to understand where I was. I was in the jungle for 10 years. Yo, it's just insanity. So what do I want? Do I want more insanity? No, I really like silence. I like candles.
What do you feel like like you gained out of the silence, like of connecting with the silence? Connecting with the silence. Like, what do you feel like that
Peace, man.
Peace.
Inner peace, man. Yeah. Like I light my candles. You could smell it, like my incense. Like I'm like such a natural, organic, like
Spicy.
mellow dude until I'm not mellow. But I'm really, really mellow at heart, man. I really just appreciate the minimal things now. And it's the truth. And yeah, there's a brash bravado I have when I speak on my social medias and with regards to possibly getting involved with a football program that just came out, you know, and this and that, because we all need challenges in life. And sometimes you just know you can do something that others maybe can't do. And you feel like you have to take on that challenge. But I'm also 55, so I can't do 100 different things. I really want to just do a few things that I really just enjoy and I want to just reclaim peace that I never had when I was riding high. I never had peace. I never had peace.
For people who want to ride high, like, do you think you almost need to touch that to be like, that's not what you need? Or do you think that they should?
Good question. You know, I would say it's like our parents. When they give us advice, we're laughing at them. All right, come on, Mom. Come on, Dad. You know, this and that. But the truth of the matter is they really know. But we know everything. I mean, you could be my son based on the age difference. But, like, you probably think, like, I got this. But you really don't, because you got to go through the journey and the experience. And experience makes you
Wise.
And so, you know, I thought I had all the answers, you know, and I didn't. And that's what the older me says to the younger me.
Did younger you realize he was unhappy, or was it only after the fact that you were like, fuck, that time was empty?
Man, I was so empty.
Yeah, you knew it.
I felt it. I was really, you know, without, and I would share the story, but like I could share a story about my past relationships and when I really felt empty because I was doing the wrong thing as a man, right? You know, I was drinking my own Kool-Aid, man. And when people are serving it up to you, you're going to take it, you know? And like the celebrities I knew and like, man, that don't mean shit. None of them were there when it really mattered. None of them, you know? And I don't hate on them, you know? You hear felon, you hear what? Fuck, I'm not going near that guy. I get it. You know, and but you know, I really feel like I can be a life coach right now. And there's many people in my personal world now, I'd say 6, 7, 8, 9 people, less than 10, that really matter to me and look up to my conversations like what we're having right now, because I just keep it so real. You and anyone could say anything they want about me, and I can't control that. But my life was an insane ride, and it's not past tense like I'm dead, but that life is behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And am I happy I went through it? Only God knows what you're supposed to go through. I don't know. I could just tell you one thing. I'm not like, if I died today, I lived a life, and my heart's in a good place. I've always had a good heart. I'm a sensitive guy. I respect my elderly. I love pets. I'm respectful to women. Like I do the right things. I just, if you challenge me, I got like that Napoleon edge, and I'm just fucking nasty. Like, that's it. And does it make me a bad guy? No, it just makes me who I am.
Yeah, man. That quote, the youth is wasted on the young, it comes to mind. It's an interesting one. Seems like it holds true.
In your craft with doing these interviews, I'm sure you come across a lot of different personalities and storylines. And it's got to be a great experience for you, because you just see the world through the eyes of others, older, same age, whatever, ultra successful, maybe not so successful, and no one's got the answers. You just your experience takes you through, but like, just really, you don't have to be in a hurry, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's a great piece of advice, because
you just don't have to be in a hurry.
Because everything else, like with the phones and society, it programs you into wanting that hurry, or feeling like you need to be in
here.
that hurry.
I mean, I'm going to tell you. So, and I don't care who hears this. So, I was never really on Instagram. I purposely just didn't want people following. Like, I needed to be alone and just touch the ground. So I had like 3 or 4 followers, 5 followers, and they were like people that I know my whole life, and I would very rarely talk. So all of a sudden, these guys start doing my social media. Next thing you know, I got 1,000 followers, and some guy makes a comment to me, "Oh, why should I take you serious? You got 2,000 followers." And I'm thinking to myself, is that how you're judged? On how many? Like, I know
so
if
funny,
I want,
so fucked
I
up.
know that if I want, I know this, that if I wanted to really be that guy, I'd have 1 million followers.
Yeah, you have the story for it, for sure.
In a like
Yeah, just like that.
I'm not trying to be followed. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So I was responding to people, fuck off. I was getting suspended by Instagram every like 30 days. And then I'd come off and I get suspended for another 30 days. So like, I was like in the shoe on Instagram. And so finally I just said to these guys, it's me. I'm verified. These guys handle my social media. They pass on the messages to me. And it's better that way. I'm so much more at peace. Because what am I going to do? Sit here and go at it with everybody in the world? It's crazy. And people just hate. And it's like, if of the hate comments I get, let's say 90% of them, if they really knew who I was and what my background was, they'd never say that to me. Ever. But because, you could say any behind a keyboard, you're a tough guy, And the funny thing is, I've given my cell phone number to maybe 20, 30 people who were talking nasty shit to me. So if you got something to say, just call me. I'm really close with those people now by texting, and we're like in group chats now because they see I'm really a good guy. I'm not this animal that's been portrayed.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, for preparation for this episode, I was like, oh, I gotta rewatch the 30 for 30 doc.
It's garbage.
And before, you and me had spoken on the phone in organizing this, and we had a nice long conversation, and like I definitely took away that you were like a very good guy. That was the sentiment I got.
Yeah.
And then I go and watch a 30 for 30, and I was like, fuck, I'm a little like, who is this guy? This guy's crazy.
And that's what happens, to answer one of your earlier questions, which I didn't even think of. When the students speak to me, they have to do research on me before I speak to the class.
Wow.
And so they say to the professor, that's not the same guy.
Yeah, they're like, how do you? Yeah,
that's not the same guy. And man, I'm a good guy. Like, we'd be, if we're, man, I'd have you, I'm a funny dude. Like, I'm a funny dude. Like, I don't even take myself seriously. I'm self-deprecating. I make fun of my own sentence, not the charges and the people that got hurt. But I make fun of it, like, because I know it's a fucking sham. What they did, I know it's a sham. It's like Trump sitting there with 34 felonies. Does he really have 34? Come on. You know what I mean? So I got to take the L because they gave me the L.
Yep. And you kind of, I mean, obviously through that, you learn to just be like, I don't give a fuck.
Man, listen, life is short. You know what I mean? And I just saw this commentary from, like, I think it was Jerry Seinfeld a few weeks ago. And it was so, I'm not a big Seinfeld fan, but it was just an appropriate statement. He said, what's it all about? We're going to die. Like, we die. And the world moves on. And they'll talk about you maybe here and there. What's it matter?
Yep.
Just live. And we're all going to the same place. Some north, some south, but we're going to the same place. When it's over, it's over.
Mm.
And I can't sit and worry this and that. I just know my conscience and my heart, when I take care of and resolve what outstanding matters, I have to know that I did the right thing. I can live with myself.
Yeah, like you feel like nowadays.
I just know it, and I'm very close to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not there, but I'm very close. And I believe this year, 2025, I'll finalize all those details.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and I really want to make sure that the victims in my case are right. It's not just hyperbole or just chatter to make myself look like, oh, he's doing the right thing and he's saying the right thing. They got fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Except I wasn't the one that fucked them, but I'm the one who's responsible.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to take that responsibility, but I'm going to do everything in my power to make that thing zero right. Like, I can't fix the water under the bridge, but I'm going to do my part. And I've done it since I went in. And if I could have been very bitter and said, you know what, you guys sent me away for a ridiculous period of time, I'm not doing shit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't take that approach.
Yeah. And we can cut this part if this question is something you can't speak about. But before, when we were just talking, you were telling me about some of the players and kind of taking me more in depth into the situation. And,
Yeah.
There's this weird connection between the one of the players involved in your story and then one of the players involved in like Jeffrey Epstein's story. And that I think people are so fascinated with nowadays is that Jeffrey Epstein story.
Yeah.
And his whole what the fuck happened with that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that whole story is like?
Well, what's the specific question itself? Is it about his crime? Is it about when he was inside? Like what's the specific question?
Take it as you wish, because I'm curious about all of it, and I think most people are. They don't feel like.
Well, first of all,
we understand the full story.
So I don't understand his story. I don't know anything about what he was doing. I don't know anything about. I don't know what his case. I know the merits of the case based on what everyone else knows. He's despicable.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy. You know, there's a word for that inside. It's called chomo, which is child molester. He has money or had money, so he would have probably survived to some degree inside. But it would have come with a lot of abuse for him.
Yep.
But as far as, are you talking about the common denominator? Is that your question?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to just say this. The attorneys that represented me represented Jeffrey Epstein at the same time. Separate cases.
Mhm.
That's what I'll say. What's going to come out, it's not going to be for me to unveil,
Yep.
but it's going to be unveiled.
It's a very odd little
Connection?
coincidence.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people are going to be, I don't think, I know. People are going to be shocked when they learn my real story. You're going to have a percentage of people that don't believe it, which in straight candor, looking right into your camera, I don't give a fuck. I got every single receipt and witnesses to back it.
You were showing me your QuickBooks. I saw
Listen,
it.
man. When I, you know, even going back to, not to bring in the University of Miami story, but like when people say this and that, I got every receipt.
Yeah.
Like, numbers don't lie. Pictures don't lie. I'm not photoshopping them. I don't even know how to turn on this mic. Like, I'm not skilled in that regard.
I mean, yeah, you brought out the photo book. Just taking photos out at random, and it was like crazy celebrity, crazy whatever.
They're there. They know what they know who they are.
Yeah.
But anyway, people are going to be shocked at my story because it can happen to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
It just unfortunately happened to me. But I don't look at my prison situation and the fact that I had to go away. Like, I don't let it eat me as a cancer. The part that eats me is who got away with the injustice, which is what I'm focused on once this ends.
Mm-hmm.
That process already started, but I'll be hands-on once this ends. And whoever's not going to believe it just because they just don't want to believe it, and they've already
formed an opinion.
and that's fine. That's fine. All I can do is be authentic, tell my truth, and let the world decide what they think.
Mm-hmm.
But I can assure you, whoever's doing my documentary and who's doing my series and doing the movie and doing the books, they got legal behind it and fact checkers, and they're not taking my word.
Mm-hmm. That's gonna be a good series.
Nothing will match it because it goes in different lanes.
Yeah,
it's women, it's money, it's celebrities, it's
corruption,
public corruption.
Yeah,
political corruption. And like, there's no end.
Yeah,
there's no end. College football, there's just no end.
And why
inner city life for
True.
me and who my ties were, like, I would be watching.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna watch.
Why was there so much like corruption from public, like
I can't answer. I don't know. You know, like when you are an asset or you control certain assets, you're better off out of the picture than in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just life. Right? Like, that's just life. We go through it every day. There's a lot of evil in this world. And everything is based on greed as it relates to that. You know?
What's your relationship like with greed? Because I feel like your story is one of almost like a cautionary tale of greed for people.
Interestingly enough, I wasn't greedy. As a matter of fact, I should have been. Because
in what sense?
In the sense that, like, I should have been more on top of my stuff rather than so
passive,
philanthropic towards those who didn't deserve it. My attorneys, I didn't check them.
Yeah.
My accountants, I didn't check them because I was caught up in other things that
we were going too fast.
Wasn't where I just wasn't where I should have been.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Women, I gambled and I had women vices. Those were my vices. I never did drugs ever in my life. Smoked weed maybe 10 times my whole life. One hit of weed. And I could say that confidently. It's not my thing. Pills, other than my prescribed medications for my health, for my heart or whatever. But drugs were never my thing. Drinking, I took it here and there. I was drinking $2,000 red French wines. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that became my thing. And I was like nice and la la la, like, you know, I wasn't like belligerent,
Yeah.
you know, bouncing off the walls. You know what I mean? So those were my vices, women and gambling. And, you know, it got a little bit out of control with my gambling because I just didn't have the concept of a dollar.
Yeah, true.
I mean, that's it. Slow
Came
down.
too easy. Yeah.
Man, just slow down. It's me. I know where I made my mistakes. And I own my mistakes. But I don't think I should own mistakes that really weren't mine.
Of the mistakes that you made, so, I mean, of the ones we talked about, it's just moving too fast, ego.
Oh, yeah.
What
Listen, that
else?
ego, really, you don't got to go further than that.
Yeah, it's just really that.
Yeah, because the ego is the most powerful downfall of just life. I'm still guilty of it to a degree, because when you've had that success, you never really lose it, but you've got to tame it to reality and be proper. Not everybody's happy for your success. Say less. Just say less, you know. I was more of a bragger, like I had to show you, and that's where all the fancy cars come from and this and that. That shit was bullshit. It just was. It was bullshit. It didn't make me feel any better.
Mm-hmm.
Who sees me? That was like important for a minute. Just waste of money.
Check.
Just wasted money.
What do you like? So there's a very famous book like called Ego's the Enemy. Like, do you feel like that's the case? What do you think your relationship like with ego now? Do you think it's like something you have to befriend or something that you have to just try to beat out of you?
My ego is going to be satisfied when my truth is unveiled.
You think so?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I'm fighting for the truth right now. And a lot of my hostility or response venom comes at people who think they know the story. So
I get it. Yeah.
you know what I mean? So
Totally.
so that's why I'll be in a much more peaceful state, because then I've emptied the tank. I'm not carrying anything around.
Mm-hmm.
It is like it's all out there for everyone to see, and then make your decision. If you still think that, then you just have already had it set in your mind. I don't like this guy, and I don't give a fuck what he says, and he's a piece of shit, and this and that. But for the people that have dug in, they can't believe it. They can't believe it. I just showed you the sizzle. What did you think?
It's fucking crazy. It's just it's like a head scratcher in many ways. It's just there's just so much there that
You can't. That's why
I kind of just don't get it in a way.
And that's why it's taken the length of time it's taken and the route it's going to take, and it's going to be explained where you're going to be like, what's next? And there's a character in this that you don't even know about yet. I'll tell you when we get off, and you won't believe it. And no one knows who this person is, that they're related to my case. But I'll tell you this. He's an ADX Florence serving a 6-life sentence. Where El Chapo is, and the 911 bombers, and that's where he is. And that's who put me away.
Oh, okay. So because you keep alluding to a figure that is at the opposition of it.
It's all coming.
So that's the figure that's kind of at the opposition. If
He started the problem. That's
Okay,
how I
he
end up.
started the
That's how I end up in Newark, New Jersey. That's where my case is, under Chris Christie's watch.
crazy. now when you hear like stories about different, I hate using the word corruption but when you hear stories now, are you almost does it make everything seem more believable when you hear people talk about XYZ conspiracy theory or corruption?
Of course.
Or you're just like,
I'm a walking.
I get it.
My story's a walking conspiracy.
Yeah.
I'm not 90% sure. I'm 100% sure. Like, have I wavered since we started speaking about my position?
No. Yeah.
I'm never going to waver.
Yeah.
I expect my conviction to get overturned.
Mm-hmm.
Not pardoned, overturned. There's a difference, right?
And where does the University of Miami fit into this whole equation?
That was
it became the thing for a while. That was like, it seems like it was a hobby, but it was portrayed as your whole thing, as your whole life.
Okay, so I'm going to harken back to the days when you were in elementary school. So you had math, you had spelling.
Got like 7 classes, 8 classes, yeah.
And you had PE.
Yep.
The University of Miami was PE to me.
Just the fun.
I did it because I could.
Yeah.
I was a huge fan. So I developed a relationship with a number of guys, and it just sort of like took on its own life. It wasn't with intent to, like, everyone's like, this guy was a jock sniffer and a groupie. They were my groupies. They were my groupie. I wasn't their groupie. Like, they were I didn't need them. I was already wealthy and had whatever I wanted, which I've shared before. And I speak to a lot of those guys now. Some of them are, they're big shots in their own mind now. So I don't speak to them, but I don't lose sleep over it. They know who they are, and they know what I did for them, and that's it. I can't fight the who am I fighting? Like, you know what I mean? The story should have never really happened. It was a family matter that should have stayed in-house.
And it only got brought out of house because you were going through this legal situation.
Well, there's a number of reasons. First of all, there was discovery evidence that I stumbled upon that I was provided with by the government. And there were over 40 players that, based on their initials, who I can identify, were willing to cooperate if I was to go to trial.
And what would they?
I don't know. I don't know what their conversations were with the government. I don't know how it went. I don't know.
Because what knowledge
they paint the picture. Well, I was being monitored, so my financial records and everything, the server, everything was turned over, taken from me.
Yeah. So they were kind of there to paint the picture of
probably
your lifestyle.
Right. Probably.
Okay,
I would
for
assume.
court.
Yeah, I would assume.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I would assume. That's part. The other part was I was designated to Miami. And the government doesn't really control where you land. The BOP does, Bureau of Prisons. They weren't thrilled that I was going to Miami because I had too much juice, I guess, resources.
You knew the city of Miami well.
Come on. I mean, I was as wired as you can get inside there in that city, right? So there were a number of mitigating factors that led me out of there. And it was probably better I didn't end up there anyway, because I really was forced to grow up personally, emotionally.
Yeah.
You could be physically ready,
the difficulty helped.
Changed my life. Don't I seem peaceful? I am. And I was carrying around a lot of weight on my back. I had a lot of responsibility. I had a lot of money that I was dealing with. I just don't need that. I don't. It was a lot of stress, man. I was living too many lives. It was very, very difficult.
So now with, all the knowledge you possess from a life perspective and a business perspective, if you were, fresh out of college and you're like, all right, I want to go make some money, make a life for myself. Like, how do you think you would approach it now?
Well, the media world is different now than when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And like what you're doing, I love. Like that's why I decided to give you this opportunity to speak. I have not spoken with a lot of people purposely, and I think this is a great, man. If you could perfect it and find your right niche, what's better than doing this?
Oh, it's beautiful.
What's
Talk
better
about peacefulness. I mean, the conversation.
What's better?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what I would be doing, And I do this college football, like I mentioned.
Yep.
I do this college football podcast, and for me, it's just so liberating and fun, and it's awesome, and we're really good. Like we're good, man. Like I put my knowledge up against anybody, and I get inside information too. So I'm like bringing you the gossip with it.
Yeah, you sent me a video from Pac-Man Jones's podcast where he was introducing you, and that was a fun introduction to watch. Where he was like, he was describing some of the fun times you guys had back in the day.
Yeah, he's another one that's misunderstood.
Yeah,
really good dude, man. And
for those that don't know, NFL player, former NFL player, is he a Hall of Famer?
Pac-Man? I don't think so.
If not close to it.
I mean, he has Hall of Fame talent, but he was, he had some off-field issues and moved around a little bit. He gets my vote. He's definitely, he's not a big guy, so that's a big boy's game, and he's not a big dude, tough as nails, and good kid, man. I always loved him. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, Nevin, anything that we haven't talked about that we'd be remiss if we didn't cover?
I think we really, I think we really hit the nail on the head, man.
I agree.
To be honest with you, and I'm going to show the world my other side. I'm a sweetheart of a guy. The brashness and all the bravado and the hooting and hollering and all that stuff. That's a narrative. You know what I mean? And you look how Mike Tyson used to be, and now look how he is.
He was a figure that came to mind a few times during this conversation. Just in my mind.
And I watched him go from like gladiator animal to just, like
I'm a peaceful guy.
I'm a really big fan of his now, more so than even before. And I think there's a lot of similarities. And I think there's a lot of similarities between me and our president-elect as well, misunderstood and otherwise. And, I'm not the judge, man. He's the judge. And I'm going to just tell my story. It's going to be told. And everyone can make their own judgment call and form their own opinion based on facts.
Yep.
Not on mainstream media or government propaganda. And that's all I'll say. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm an innocent guy. I'm just going to say I'm not that guy. And that's it. Yeah, no, I think we pretty much covered the gamut.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to seeing all the stuff that comes out and the future of what's going to be an incredible docu-series and whatever else might come from it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And
awesome.
I'll
link to your podcast and all that stuff in the description of the episode. And
great.
Appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks,
awesome.
Ryan.
Sweet. That was great.